Ethan was 10 years old when everything changed. He was just a normal boy living in a small town. His house was close to the woods, and he liked to explore them after school. The trees were tall and thick, and the ground was always soft with old leaves. Ethan liked the quiet. The birds sang, and the wind made the branches move gently. He always thought the woods were safe. But one day, as he walked along his usual path, he heard a strange sound. It was a low whimper, almost like someone crying. Ethan stopped and listened. He heard it again. He followed the sound, moving slowly between the trees. He found something that made him freeze. Lying behind a fallen log was a girl. She looked his age, but something about her was different. Her skin was a light blue color, and her eyes were big and dark. She wore strange clothes that shimmered in the sunlight. She looked scared and hurt. Ethan could see a cut on her arm and a strange mark on her forehead. She looked at Ethan, and for a moment, both of them just stared at each other. Ethan wanted to run, but the girl looked so sad and afraid that he could not leave her. He knelt beside her and spoke softly, trying to show he was not dangerous. The girl did not answer at first, but then she spoke in a quiet voice. Her words were slow, and her accent was strange. But he understood her name was Lyra. She tried to sit up, but she was too weak. Ethan took off his backpack and gave her some water and a small sandwich he had brought from home. She drank the water slowly and ate the food. He could see her hands shaking. Ethan did not know what to do, but he wanted to help her. He remembered a first aid kit his mother had packed for him. He cleaned the cut on her arm and put a bandage over it. Lyra watched him the whole time. She did not speak much, but her eyes showed she was thankful. When he finished, she tried to smile. They sat together for a while. Ethan asked her where she came from, but Lyra shook her head and looked up at the sky. She pointed at the stars and then touched her chest. Ethan understood that she was not from around here. She was lost and alone. He felt sorry for her. Ethan knew he could not tell anyone. No one would believe him, and he was afraid the adults would be scared of Lyra. He promised Lyra he would come back the next day. She nodded and squeezed his hand. Before he left, Ethan looked around to make sure no one had seen them. He ran home, his mind full of questions. He thought about Lyra all night. He wondered who she was and why she was here. The next day, Ethan went back to the woods. He brought more food, water, and a blanket. Lyra was waiting for him. She looked a little better but was still weak. He tried to make her comfortable. They did not talk much, but they did not need to. They were becoming friends. Ethan felt proud that he was helping someone who needed him. For the next week, Ethan visited Lyra every day. He brought her things and made sure she was safe. He learned a few words from her language, and she learned some of his. Lyra liked to watch the birds and listen to the river. Sometimes she would laugh at the small animals that ran through the trees. Ethan liked her laugh. It made him feel happy. One evening, as Ethan was leaving the woods, he saw a black car on the road. 2 men in dark suits were talking to people in the town. Ethan felt a chill in his stomach. He knew they were looking for something, maybe even Lyra. He ran home and waited until it was dark. When everyone was asleep, he went back to the woods and warned Lyra. She was scared, but she trusted Ethan. Together they made a plan to hide her better. The men came to the woods the next day. Ethan watched from a distance as they searched. They did not find Lyra. Ethan was careful, and he made sure not to leave any clues. When it was safe, he went to see Lyra and told her she would be okay. Lyra hugged him and said, "Thank you." Ethan felt a strong bond with her. He did not want her to leave, but he knew she could not stay forever. One night, Lyra told Ethan she had to go soon. She promised him she would never forget what he did for her. Ethan felt sad, but he understood. On her last day, Lyra gave him a small silver token. She pressed it into his hand and smiled. Ethan watched as she disappeared into the trees, the token warm in his palm. He stood there for a long time, looking at the stars, and wondered if he would ever see her again. Ethan never forgot Lyra, even after she left. He kept the silver token hidden in a small box under his bed. Sometimes, late at night, he would take it out and look at it, feeling its smooth surface and thinking about the alien girl he once helped. The memory made him feel special, but also lonely. He wanted to talk about it, but he knew no one would believe him. He had made a promise to Lara, and he wanted to keep it. As Ethan grew older, life changed. He went to school every day and tried his best, but he was always thinking about the time he spent in the woods with Lara. He had friends at school, but he felt different from them. No one else had a secret like his. Sometimes he would go back to the same spot in the woods, hoping to find another sign of her, but the place was always empty. The fallen log was covered with moss, and the only sounds were the birds and the wind. Ethan wondered if it had all been a dream, but the token in his pocket told him it was real. Years went by. Ethan finished high school and then college. He studied science because he wanted to understand more about the world and maybe even about other worlds. He learned about space, stars, and planets. The more he learned, the more he hoped he might see Lara again one day. He took a job at a research center in the city where he worked with computers and telescopes. He tried to live a normal life, but something was always missing. Sometimes, Ethan would hear news stories about strange lights in the sky or reports of mysterious objects seen by people in other towns. Most people laughed at these stories, but Ethan listened carefully. He wondered if Lara's people were out there, watching. He wondered if she was safe, and if she ever thought about him. He tried to write about his memories in a small notebook, but the words never seemed enough. Ethan's parents moved to another town, but he stayed in the city for work. He visited home sometimes, but he felt like a guest in his own life. He saw old friends, but they had grown apart. Most of them talked about sports, movies, and jobs. Ethan tried to join in, but he did not really care about those things. He felt like he was waiting for something, though he did not know what it was. One evening, while Ethan was working late at the research center, he saw something strange on his computer screen. The telescope had picked up a signal from deep space. It was not like anything he had seen before. It was a pattern, almost like a message. Ethan stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He wondered if it could be from Lara's planet. He copied the data and took it home with him. All night, he tried to figure out what it meant. He wrote notes and drew lines on paper, but the answer would not come. The signal stayed in his mind, and he could not stop thinking about it. Days passed, but Ethan could not forget the strange signal. He went to work as usual, but his mind was always on the message from space. Sometimes he would walk in the city park and look up at the stars, remembering how Lara pointed at the sky long ago. He missed her, even though he knew it was foolish. No one at work understood why he was so quiet and distracted. They only saw a smart young man who did his job and went home alone. One day, while Ethan was buying coffee, he overheard two people talking about a recent news story. They said that in another town, a farmer had seen a bright light land in his field. He found strange marks on the ground, but no one believed him. Ethan felt a cold shiver run through his body. He remembered the men in black suits and the car that came to his town so long ago. He thought about the stories he had read, and for the first time in years, he wondered if Lara might come back. That night, Ethan sat in his small apartment, holding the silver token. He wondered if it was a kind of key or a message, or maybe just a memory of a friend from another world. He closed his eyes and made a wish on the stars, hoping Lara was safe and happy wherever she was. He promised himself that if he ever saw her again, he would help her just like before. He did not know if she remembered him, but he remembered her every day. Even though he felt alone, he knew that their story was not over. Somewhere out there, he hoped, Lara was looking at the same stars and thinking of him too. Ethan was used to living a quiet life. He worked in the city, kept to himself, and spent his evenings watching the stars. His days were simple, but deep down he wished for something more. He always wondered if Lara would ever return. Sometimes, he dreamed about her and the adventures they might have. Still, every morning he woke up to the same old life, and the world moved on without any sign of Lara or her people. One night, everything changed. Ethan was walking home from work. The sky was dark and the city was quiet. As he reached the edge of the city park, he noticed a bright light above the trees. At first he thought it was a plane, but it moved in a way he had never seen before. The light grew bigger and brighter. Soon, People on the street began to notice. Some stopped to stare. Some pointed their phones at the sky. The light hovered for a few moments, then slowly drifted down toward the field at the edge of town. Ethan's heart started to race. He remembered the stories he had heard and the night he met Lyra years ago. He ran toward the field, pushing through the small crowd that was forming. The air felt charged, and a low hum filled the air. Then the light faded, and in its place stood a strange ship. It was smooth and silver, with lines that glowed softly in the dark. The ship opened, and a group of figures stepped out. At first, Ethan could not see their faces. But then one of the figures moved closer. She was taller than before, and her clothes were bright and decorated with shining patterns. Her skin was still a light blue, and her eyes were just as dark and kind as he remembered. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. It was Lyra. She was back. Lyra looked around at the crowd. People were scared. Some took pictures while others started to run away. The police came quickly, shouting for everyone to stay back. But Lyra's eyes searched the crowd, and when she saw Ethan, she smiled. She walked toward him, her guards close behind her. She looked proud and strong, but when she spoke, her voice was soft. She said his name, and Ethan felt the years fall away. Ethan wanted to ask her 1,000 questions, but he could not find the words. Lyra told him she had become the queen of her people. Her ship and guards were there to protect her. She said she needed his help and that she had never forgotten him. The police tried to block their way, but Lyra spoke to them in perfect English. She told them she was not there to hurt anyone. The guards kept close to Lyra, watching everyone carefully. Ethan knew the police would not let them leave so easily. The crowd was growing, and the news cameras arrived. People were shouting and trying to get closer. Lyra leaned close to Ethan and whispered that they had to go. Her guards made a path for them, and they hurried back to the ship. Ethan was scared, but he trusted Lyra. The doors closed behind them, and the world outside grew quiet again. Inside the ship, Ethan was amazed. The walls glowed with soft lights, and everything looked new and strange. Lyra told her guards to leave them alone. She looked at Ethan and said she was happy to see him. Ethan felt nervous, but Lyra made him feel safe. She told him about her life since they last met. She talked about her people, the problems on her planet, and how she became their queen. Ethan listened to every word. He could see that Lyra had grown strong and wise, but she still had the same kind heart. Lyra said she needed someone she could trust. She needed a friend from Earth, someone who understood both her and her people. She asked Ethan to come with her to help her lead and solve the problems facing her world. Ethan was surprised. He never thought his life would change so quickly. He looked at the silver token in his hand and thought about the promise he made. He nodded and told Lyra he would go with her. As the ship lifted off the ground, Ethan looked out the window. He saw the city grow smaller and smaller. The stars were bright in the sky. He felt afraid, but also excited. He was leaving everything he knew behind, but he was not alone. Lyra was by his side. Together, they were about to start a new adventure, one that would take them farther than Ethan had ever dreamed. Ethan sat in the ship and felt nervous. The walls glowed a soft blue, and everything looked clean and smooth. Lyra stood next to him. She smiled and told him it was safe. The ship began to move. Ethan looked out the window and saw the city fall away. Soon the ship was high above the ground, and the stars were all around them. He could not believe he was leaving Earth. He held the silver token in his hand, feeling its warmth. It made him feel less afraid. Lyra showed Ethan around the ship. The rooms were strange, with doors that opened by themselves and chairs that floated in the air. Lyra introduced Ethan to her advisors. There was Marek, who looked serious and always watched Ethan with careful eyes. There was also Sarah, who was kind and smiled at Ethan. The advisors spoke in their own language, but Lyra translated for Ethan. She told them Ethan was her friend and he was there to help. The ship traveled very fast. Ethan was amazed when Lyra told him they would reach her planet in only a few days. During the trip, Lyra taught Ethan about her people. She showed him pictures and maps of her world. The cities were tall and bright, with towers that glowed at night. The people had blue skin like Lyra, but each one looked different. Lyra told Ethan about the problems her world was facing. There was not enough water for everyone, and some people were angry with her because she was young and new as a queen. Ethan listened carefully. He asked questions about Lyra's world and how things worked. He wanted to help, but he did not know how. Lyra said she needed someone who understood humans and could help her talk to other leaders. She said some people on her planet did not trust Earth, but she believed that Ethan could help change that. At night, Ethan could not sleep. He thought about his home and his family. He wondered if anyone missed him. He looked at the stars and tried to find Earth, but there were too many lights. Lyra came and sat with him. She told him she often felt alone, too, even as a queen. She said it was hard to make big decisions when people were always watching and judging her. Ethan listened and said he understood. They both felt a little better. After talking, one morning, the ship shook and made a strange sound. Merrick rushed into the room and spoke to Lyra in a worried voice. Lyra told Ethan not to be afraid. She said another ship was following them. The advisors looked scared, but Lyra stayed calm. She spoke into a small device and told the other ship to leave. After a few tense minutes, the other ship turned away. Lyra said it was just a group who did not like her being queen. She told Ethan there were many who wanted her to fail, but she would not give up. After the danger passed, Ethan spent time learning about Lyra's culture. He ate new foods that tasted sweet and spicy. He wore clothes made from soft fabric that changed color in the light. Lyra taught him simple words in her language, and Ethan made her laugh when he got them wrong. They spent hours looking at the stars together and talking about their dreams. Lyra told Ethan that meeting him when she was young changed her life. She said he gave her hope and made her believe that people from different worlds could be friends. Finally, the ship reached Lyra's planet. Ethan looked out the window and saw blue oceans and green lands below. The ship landed in a large city with bright towers and busy streets. People came to greet Lyra, bowing and speaking in soft voices. Some looked at Ethan with surprise, but Lyra told them he was her special guest. The advisors led them through the city to the royal palace, which was tall and covered in silver patterns. Inside, everything was new and beautiful. The halls were wide and filled with light. Lyra showed Ethan his own room. It was simple but comfortable, with a window that looked out over the city. Ethan felt nervous but also excited. He knew things would be hard, but he wanted to help Lyra and learn about her world. That night, as he looked at the stars from his new home, Ethan felt hope. He was far from Earth, but he was not alone. Lyra was his friend, and together they would face whatever came next. Ethan woke up early in his new room. The sunlight came through the window and made the walls glow softly. He looked out and saw the city waking up. People moved through the streets below, busy and full of life. Ethan felt both nervous and excited. Today, he was going to meet the royal court. This was the group of people who helped Lyra rule her planet. He wondered how they would feel about him, a human coming into their world. Lyra came to get him. She was dressed in her royal clothes. Her skin shone softly and her eyes looked strong and wise. She smiled at Ethan and told him not to be afraid. "They will see who you are," she said. "They will see you are here to help." When they arrived at the court, Ethan was surprised. The room was large and full of people. Some wore bright colors. Others had serious faces. All of them watched Ethan closely. Lyra introduced him as her friend from Earth. Some people whispered quietly, and Ethan felt their eyes on him. He tried to stay calm and remember why he was there. The leader of the court was a tall woman named Vina. She spoke first. Her voice was strong but polite. She asked Ethan many questions about Earth. She wanted to know if humans were trustworthy. Ethan answered honestly. He told her about his life and about Lyra. He said he wanted to help, not to cause trouble, not. All the court was happy to see Ethan. Some thought he was a danger. They believed humans could not be trusted and that Lyra should not listen to him. Ethan saw the anger in their eyes, but he did not give up. Lyra stood beside him and spoke kindly to the court. She said she chose Ethan because he was honest and brave. During the meeting, a messenger came with news. There was a problem in one of the cities on the planet. People were upset because of a water shortage. They were planning to protest. The court needed to act quickly. Lyra looked at Ethan and asked for his advice. Ethan thought carefully. He remembered stories from Earth about how people solved problems by talking and working together. He suggested that Lyra send helpers to talk with the people and bring them food and water while they worked on a long-term plan. The court listened. Some nodded in agreement, others looked doubtful. Lyra decided to follow Ethan's advice. She sent teams to help the city. Ethan went with one group. They walked through the streets and spoke with the people. Ethan saw the fear and anger in their eyes, but he also saw hope when Lyra's team arrived with help. The people listened, and slowly the protests stopped. Back at the palace, Ethan felt proud. He had helped solve a real problem. Some members of the court came to thank him. Even Vina smiled and said he had done well. Ethan felt his place in the court grow stronger, but not all was calm. Some groups still plotted against Lyra. They wanted to take power for themselves. Ethan learned about secret meetings and quiet threats. He told Lyra what he knew. She listened and said she was ready to face the challenges. She said having Ethan by her side made her stronger. As days passed, Ethan and Lyra spent more time together. They talked about their hopes for the planet and the future. Lyra shared her fears too. She worried that she might not be strong enough to be a good queen. Ethan told her that true strength comes from caring and trying, not just from power. One evening, Ethan and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The lights sparkled below like stars. Lyra smiled and said she was glad Ethan had come. Ethan smiled back and said he felt the same. They knew the road ahead would be hard, but they would face it together. Ethan had found a new home, and with Lyra, he was ready to help build a better future for her people. A dark cloud hung over Lyra's kingdom. A powerful enemy from a distant planet was moving closer. This enemy wanted to take Lyra's land and rule her people. The news spread fast, and fear grew in the cities. Lyra called a meeting with her advisors and Ethan. They needed a plan. Ethan looked around the room. The faces of the advisors were serious and tense. Marek spoke first, saying they must prepare for war. Some agreed with him. Others wanted to find a way to avoid fighting. Lyra listened to everyone and then turned to Ethan. She asked, "What do you think?" Ethan thought about Earth's history. He knew war could bring great harm. But he also knew people could find peace if they talked and understood each other. He told Lyra, "We should try to talk first. Find a way to stop the fighting before it starts." Lyra nodded. She trusted Ethan's words. She sent a message to the enemy, asking for a meeting. The enemy did not answer at first. Days passed with no reply. The people grew restless and feared the worst. Soldiers prepared for battle. Ethan helped Lyra speak to her people, calming their fears and asking for patience. Finally, the enemy sent a reply. They would meet, but warned Lyra to be careful. The meeting was set on a neutral planet. Lyra and Ethan traveled there with a small group of guards. The place was strange and quiet. The enemy leader arrived, a tall figure with sharp eyes and dark armor. They spoke through translators. The talks were difficult. The enemy demanded land and resources. Lyra refused. Ethan spoke for her, explaining that her people wanted peace and shared future. He told the enemy leader about Earth and how different worlds could help each other. Slowly, the leader's anger softened. They agreed to continue talking. Back on Lyra's planet, the people waited nervously. Ethan and Lyra returned with hope. They worked hard to build trust between their people and the enemies. They shared knowledge and ideas. Ethan helped create a plan for sharing resources and protecting the planet. The crisis brought the kingdom closer. People who once feared war now worked together for peace. Lyra's leadership grew stronger. Ethan's place at her side became clear. He was more than a friend, he was a partner in building a better future. One evening, Ethan and Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the city. The stars shone brightly. Lyra took Ethan's hand and said, "Thank you for believing in me." "I could not have done this without you," Ethan smiled. "We did this together, your people and mine." They looked at the sky, dreaming of peace and hope for all worlds. The road was still long, but they were ready to walk it side by side. The war was avoided. The peace talks worked better than anyone had hoped. Lyra's kingdom was safe, and the enemy agreed to share the planet's resources. The people celebrated, and hope returned to the cities. Ethan stood beside Lyra as the people cheered. He could see the joy in her eyes and felt proud to be there with her. Lyra was now a strong queen. She had faced many challenges and had never given up. She worked every day to build a better life for her people. But now she had to decide something important. Ethan had helped her through everything, and she wanted him to stay. She asked him if he would live on her planet not just as a visitor, but as someone who belonged there. Ethan thought about Earth. He thought about his family and the life he left behind. But he also thought about Lyra and the new world he had come to love. He knew the choice was not easy, but he felt sure of his answer. He wanted to stay with Lyra and help her build the future they dreamed of. The people of Lyra's world welcomed Ethan warmly. He learned their ways and shared his own. He became a bridge between two worlds, helping to build trust and friendship. Together, Ethan and Lyra worked to bring peace not only to her kingdom, but to other planets as well. One day, Lyra and Ethan stood on a balcony looking out at the sunset. The sky was painted with beautiful colors. Lyra took Ethan's hand and smiled. She said, "We have come far, and there is still more to do. But I am glad we are together." Ethan smiled back and said, "Wherever we go together. Our worlds, our futures, all connected." They looked at the stars rising in the sky, knowing their story was just beginning. Together they would face whatever came next, strong and united.